All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our inaugural virtual transportation forum. We're really excited by the level of interest in joining this first meeting today and happy to take advantage of a captive audience who I imagine is mostly still working from home. Of course, you're all free of distractions, I'm sure. My name is Michael Hintz, and I am the Director of Planning at Tool Design in Seattle. I'm joined by Patrick Lynch, a planner and principal at the Transpo Group. Patrick and I are the APA Washington chapter liaisons for the Transportation Planning Division. And we're very pleased to also have with us today Gabriela Juarez, a transportation planner with the City of Los Angeles, and also the Transportation Planning Division chair. Today's forum is a first for us. The intent really is to try this out as a platform for connecting those engaged in transportation planning issues in Washington State and provide a space for some real-time exchange of ideas. Today, we hope to have a discussion around COVID-19 response and recovery as it relates to transportation and the public right-of-way. We also very much want to gather ideas from all of you on how Transportation Planning Division can support your work here in Washington State. While we have over 130 TPD members in Washington State currently, we decided to open this initial forum up to all APA Washington members, just to broaden the discussion and hopefully generate interest in joining TPD. Future TPD events will be open to members only. Okay, so on our agenda today, I'm going to start off with just a bit of housekeeping to make sure everyone knows how to participate in the discussions that we hope to have. Then Gabriela will provide an overview of TPD. Patrick will then lead us in a discussion around some initial ideas for elevating TPD among planners in Washington State. Then hopefully we'll have 25-30 minutes for an open discussion about COVID-19 response and recovery. And depending on the level of participation we get, we may need participants to just use the chat function, but I'll be looking for raised hands and I can unmute you if you want to speak up verbally. So we'll see how it goes. Just a couple housekeeping things. As you know, right now, you're all muted. If you want to ask a question, like I just said, use the chat function, which you'll see in the in your toolbar, and then or raise your hand, as I mentioned. And then one last thing, just want to make note of that this meeting is being recorded for future reference. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Gabriela to give us an overview of the Transportation Planning Division. Gabriela.
Hi there. Thanks so much for taking this great initiative. We're really excited to see the Washington State chapter really kind of get enthusiastic about our division. Can we do the next slide? Do I have the controls? No, right? Okay. So hi, lots of stuff on the screen here. And so TPD is made up of a bunch of different things, primarily, I think actually, is there a slide before this? It should have like a flow structure, like a
yeah, there's the
flow chart. Yes, this is the one. Thank you. So here you see where we fall, and I don't think I have a pointer ability, but TPD falls under the Divisions Council section there, and we are part of 4 different entities under National. Under National, which is the main organization, the main communication that you normally would see outwardly facing, we're comprised of these 4 components. The National is primarily staff, along with our elected president, who currently is Kurt Christensen, and incoming president is Leo Asuncion from the state of Hawaii. And we also have our paid staff, including our CEO, which is Joel Avizo. He's brand new, well, not brand new, but he is new to us, and we love his leadership. So they guide us in terms of the direction of APA as an organization from the national perspective, and they also help us along in these 4 different components that you see at the top, towards the top. The first is the Student Council, Student Representative Council, which is made up of our different student regents. They're elected. They also have a wonderful board of activities and things that they try to really help students get their bearings when they're coming about in their world and careers of urban planning. We also have our Divisions Council, which is where all the divisions live underneath that. All of the chairs are make up the Divisions Council along with an elected body. So we have a Divisions Council chair, vice chair, past chair, secretary, treasurer, and then we also have support staff. As you can see there, those are listed underneath Divisions Council. Next, we have our Chapters Presidents Council, which is made up of every chapter president. And so your Washington chapter president sits on this particular board. And then over on the far end, we have our AICP commissioners, who are also elected by region. And so I think I'm not familiar with the region line, so I apologize, but I think we're probably in the same grouping, California and Washington, but maybe not. I think maybe the Pacific Northwest has a separate representative. But in any case, I feel like, oh, Linda Amato is telling us Karen Wolf represents your area, and you might know her personally, and she's a great person to reach out to when you have any AICP issues that would benefit from her guidance and counseling. Next slide, please. Yes, so Linda is also sharing with us that you have Marge Press, who was a former division chair along with Linda for LGBTQ division. I didn't list them all out, but we have 26 divisions and several interest groups that are your stepping stone to becoming a new division. We have tribal, food systems, I want to say arts, it's like public arts, I believe. There's a few that are working to become division status, and Marge and Linda were a big part of helping us establish that structure. So you guys are pretty lucky having that kind of wealth of experience, knowledge, and institutional knowledge that you can draw upon. So here we have an overview of the Transportation Planning Division flowchart of structure. So we have the chair, who sits again on the Divisions Council to represent our needs, and also we are assigned, in addition to all of our duties as chair, to be on special committees. And so they range from being part of elections or nominations for awards that we have within the Divisions Council. I'm the chair for the communications divisions group, which communicates between divisions, but also to our chapter presidents and to national. In addition to that, our actual board is made up of 4 vice chairs, our secretary treasurer, and the immediate past chair. We're in the middle of a bit of a flux. We're about to embark on a change in our structure with the new bylaws that we just adopted last fall. And we're going to be, so the vice chair for chapter coordination is the new vice chair that's been added. The secretary and treasurer position were merged. So the number of people didn't actually change. It's just the positions were slightly rearranged. So in terms of actual number of people on the divisions, what are we calling it? We're calling it the our elected boards, we love to use different words all the time. So our elected board is consistent of those that you see on the first level of vice chair of policy, vice chair of outreach, vice chair of chapter coordination, vice chair of programs, secretary treasurer, and the immediate past chair. Underneath there, you can see the different assigned responsibilities for each of the vice chairs and the secretary treasurer. So here we have added the chapter liaison coordination under the vice chair of chapter coordination. So both Patrick and Michael serve as your chapter coordinators and chapter liaison coordinators, and they help us with bringing the division to your chapter so that it's not feeling so large in that we are geographically nationally dispersed. So, you know, when you schedule a meeting or some kind of event that even in a virtual setting, that's maybe at noon on the East Coast, that's like 6 p.m. for Hawaii time. And that makes it hard when you schedule things before noon on the other side of the coast, and you're trying to be inclusive. So we have a wonderful amount of activities under each one of the different vice chairs. The vice chair for policy includes our policy action committee. They also oversee the webinars and our biannual publication of the state of transportation. And that's really kind of a big, amazing pull that we do every other year of really interesting current topics and really great academic publishing for our people that are looking to get published and also to get exposure on topics that they're doing research, whether it's an academic research assignment or it's actually doing something as part of your professional practitioner life. For outreach, we've got our student paper competitions that we make available once every year in January. We have the website and social media, which is a big lift these days. It's become a bigger hat than we ever anticipated. We also have our annual member survey and then our young planners group, which we really look to draw upon getting new members in the door as they're free, and they also are able to become interested as they become interested in being active in the division, whether it's through the chapter liaisons or it's just in leadership and other activities that you see on the slide. Vice Chair of Programs has more like one-time type of events that happen not as frequently as the events that the chapter liaisons necessarily do or as frequently as webinars, but they do help us with monthly member spotlights. They help with a reception if we ever get to have an in-person meeting again. And they also help us with our track selection for nominations for the annual National Planning Conference. And then every other year, they also help coordinate the nominations for FAICP candidates that the division wants to sponsor. We've merged again, like I mentioned before, our treasurer position with secretary. And so going forward, they'll be coordinating the monthly e-blasts as well as the annual business meeting agenda, and then our small grants program that we make available once every fall. And so that small grants program is available for any member that's doing any kind of work that they need some help with. It's not a big amount of money. I think it's usually between $300 and $500, but it's really to support the advancement of transportation planning in your role that you need financial support to achieve. So it could be a training, it could be help with a program that you're looking to launch in your community that your company's working on. We've had a number of really fantastic projects come through that and that we've been really happy to support. And then as the immediate past chair, you'll be in charge of elections. So you really got to help recruit these great people that have been active in members going forward. Next slide, please. So here is, again, that kind of long list in a more iterative sort of process. Just quickly to highlight some of the major things that we do have in the calendar are the annual events, which are our business meeting and our reception, where we would normally be able to hang out and see you all and have a good, well-earned adult beverage of some kind, and also be able to connect, which we never get to do because of our geographic location. It's also our best way to network and just kind of create a good sense of communal working together. The other thing I wanted to highlight on this list is that we do have our fall leadership, which is tied into the policy Planner on the Hill program that you may remember seeing about in various emails. So the beginning part of Planner on the Hill essentially is a 2.5-day leadership conference that primarily serves for all of the chapter presidents and division chairs to get together and help us. We come together and try to find our meeting agendas to move us forward, both at the division level, at the chapter level, and then to advance APA. We bring forward any new initiatives that we're looking to try to get across through the divisions or through the chapters or through APA as a whole. One of the things that has been something we've championed as divisions is the initiative every year. The last initiative that we have been putting forward is the home initiative, to really address housing as a big priority for us as divisions and the various themes that the different divisions have to do with housing and home. So everything to do with sustainability and food systems and jobs, housing balance, and transportation, of getting you to all those places and in between, and the different kinds of transportation that's happening on the macro and micro level to make communities viable and livable. So that also, that ranges from air to freight to scooters. So it's great to be in transportation for that reason. I'm happy to be available, not just to speak about the specific roles, but if you are interested in becoming more active, I would really enjoy hearing from you, and I would love to have a conversation offline where we can delve into how you might be able to make our division that much better. So the next slide, please.
I think that's it.
That might be it. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
No, sorry, this
Yeah.
slide. Yeah.
Yes. So if you're not a member, please join us. We just redid our website, which was, my God, like pulling teeth, but we made it. We're one of the few that have made it to the other side. And hopefully you'll find it much easier to navigate. Again, if this is your forte, we're always looking for people to give us help in making us look better. This is a volunteer scenario, and we really need you to help us be better. We take most of our ideas from the annual member survey. You guys give us some incredible suggestions, one being like the YouTube channel, one telling us how hard it is to navigate our website. So all of these things are really, really important for us to hear to help us create a work program. So I really encourage you to help us be better by joining if you're not, and if you are, please think about how you can be better at getting involved. So with that, I'll turn it over back to our leaders here.
Great. Thank you so much, Gabriella, for that thorough overview of TPD. Again, if you have any questions for Gabriella, feel free to type them in the chat box. But in the interest of time, we'll probably keep moving here. And I'm going to hand it over to Patrick to lead us in discussion about TPD in Washington State. Patrick.
Thanks, Michael. And I don't know, I think we had a poll or something we were going to do to see how many people that are on the call are actual Transportation Planning Division members. But
let me try to launch that real quick.
So while you're doing that, so some of the things we've been working on is trying to elevate TPD within the APA chapter here in Washington. And so on the slide here is a couple of ideas that we've been that are in virtual, kind of different stages of development, I guess. So we wanted to have a more open way of communicating as a group here within Washington, and have a statewide way of coming together. Before all the stay-at-home orders and kind of working remotely, we were hoping to use the state chapter conference as a way of doing that. But then, Michael and I had to kind of put our heads together, knowing that wasn't going to happen this year. And even in years when we're able to do that, to bring the whole state together, we had to come up with a different way. So that's where the virtual transportation forums were developed. And we could have them more often. We didn't have to wait just for a chapter conference to do it. So that's what this first step was doing. It was creating something more formal where we could get membership together. Another idea was to develop a committee within the board of directors of the state chapter. And there's different roles this committee could hold within the board of directors, but one of which is just to help inform the chapter on certain transportation related issues that come up. And so there's different ways of doing that. And if there was a board position, it would make that a little easier. I believe Nancy Eklund is on the call, and Nancy might be able to speak to the board and how that position might fit in. I don't know, Nancy, are you on?
I believe so.
Okay. Yep, we hear you. Yep.
Okay. I'll be brief because I know you want to get on to things. Yes, the board is very interested, especially at this time, in all of its membership, and certainly the activity that we've seen in the transportation planning division in helping planners in the state. This is kind of general, do what's necessary to address the COVID problem. And so we're looking at how we can bring the divisions into the life of the chapter. And so the ad hoc option is certainly one, and we'll need to talk further with the chapter about that, but with the chapter board. But we're very interested in this level of activity that we're seeing. And so we applaud your attendance at this and hope you'll all join the transportation division so that you can continue to be involved in what is going forward. I think we have some great momentum here. So with that, I'll end my comments. So it's great.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy.
Hey, Patrick, I just wanted to mention that Gabriella shared in an email last week that in California, all the divisions are represented on the state board.
So we, yes, they have a representative. It's like a division rep on their chapter board. And this is literally brand new as of the 1st of July. They've been able to carve out some money to hire a kind of a logistics person to help us with a lot of the event side of it, because we're pretty big as a state. And so when we have an event, it's not feasible for us to have a state event. We have 5-6 sections in the state. And so even when we do a state section event, it's large. So we were able to find money in our budget to hire someone to help us on the logistical coordination end of things that are outside of our state conference. And so in that vein, the previous chapter president, Julia, and we've known each other for a while. I used to be on the APA Los Angeles section board and have known her since then. So we've always had a very open line of communication. And I've always been advocating for bringing divisions closer to the chapter. And so we started that conversation when I was the sponsorship chair for the Pasadena conference in 2016, and I was able to raise enough money to get their attention and buy us a little credibility at the exhibit booth area. And so what that entails is having space, whatever kind of space is not expensive or free would be preferable and doesn't cost the chapter at their annual conference, to be able to give us some space to advertise and even have someone booth the area. And so what we've done through the years is create that relationship through the conference bylaws. And as that kept elevating in terms of trying to resolve the best manner to do that in the contracts, because it's actually written in our conference contracts now, is that Julia, the chapter president, was saying, you know, we really should actually elevate this beyond just the state conference, because, like, for example, transportation is really viable in so many things that we do as planners. And so that helped us kind of brainstorm a methodology that wouldn't just necessarily be transportation, but would benefit all the divisions having that kind of representation at the state level. So this position has been added. It's still ad hoc. I don't think it's a voting member because it's new, and we're trying it out for size and see how the functions and logistics work. But you know, part of the partnership that we have is that through our chapter liaison program, even when a chapter liaison wants to put on an event, we do have some money as a division to put towards that event. And so similarly, we could use that money towards a co-sponsored event through the chapter, and one, get bigger audiences, and also broaden scope and theme and topic, and also maximize our dollars together. So I think this is going to be a really great example for maybe Washington State. You guys seem like you guys are ready to take this next step. And so I'm excited to help us get there.
Well, if I can add one thing, I'd say Patrick and Michael, Gabriella has certainly raised the bar with the ability to raise money. I have to say, what National has told us that is that they are anticipating, you know, their worst case scenario of losing membership is up to 25%. And so the board is taking a rather conservative approach, certainly to the financial aspects of this. But I don't know that there need to be any financial aspects to this. We certainly want to have division involvement in conferences and in providing education training, such as this sort of thing, to our membership. So with that, I'll go away. Thanks.
Yeah, I think, Nancy, to your point, there, you know, it's not like a situation where money is the trigger or the constraint. There's also ways to move towards that, you know, over time. I don't think that we're going to be in a financial circumstance that will be financially comfortable for many years to come. And so I think that we're all very creative problem solvers, and I think that we can find ways where we can stretch our dollars where there are dollars, but it doesn't depend on dollars to make our programming happen.
Okay, I'll be quick with the rest of this. And so I guess the other two things, and we haven't quite figured out what form this would take, but to have a greater presence at the chapter conferences, and you know, that could happen in a couple different ways, more transportation related sessions, just more of a presence of TPD at the conference, whether that be a booth or, you know, something that sort of kind of elevates the just the, you know, brings a bigger sense of community with planners and transportation at the conference. And so there's different ideas that were thrown out. And then I guess maybe one of the lower hanging fruit ideas is a regular column in the Washington chapter newsletter, the Washington Planner. And so to have a column that we could have a regular spot and maybe have guest writers, you know, we haven't really fleshed that idea out and exactly how that would work, but we think it's, you know, probably the easiest thing we can do, and we can start doing right away. So, and then we're open to other ideas, I guess. I mean, that's the way we'd leave it, is like if there's other ideas that others feel would be valuable and, you know, worthy ideas, we're definitely open to hearing what others might have in terms of ideas.
And we can allow some space right now if people wanted to speak up about ideas that they have. Feel free to type them in the chat box or raise your hand. I can unmute you. Any other thoughts, ideas on how to elevate TPD in Washington State? Or how it can be of more use to you in the work that you do?
I mean, as everyone's kind of thinking about that, I mean, one of the things that Michael and I have discussed is really just an exchange of ideas, and that's where this forum was sort of rooted in, was having a place to have an exchange of ideas, you know, related to planning and transportation, and that's where the TPD became a pretty natural fit for having that exchange of ideas. So, I mean, that's sort of what we would hope for at the chapter conference as well, as something similar that would facilitate that exchange of ideas.
Yeah, Veronica being added in terms of presence at a conference during this virtual time, perhaps some sort of virtual social networking event. Yeah, that's a great idea. It's something we talked about, kind of combining a social aspect and then maybe a topic discussion through that event at the conference. And I think that we're working on carving out some space on the program to do just that.
Would it be helpful, Katie Witherspoon, she's the California division representative. She's actually joined us. She was able to hop on with us. I don't know if it would be helpful if she would share what we've been devising for the California chapter virtual conference this year.
Sure, yeah, do that. Let's see here.
Katie, do you want to unmute and
I think I have to unmute her. Let's see here. Boom. Okay. Should be able to. There.
Okay, hi everybody, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Okay, great. Hi. So yeah, I just wanted to sit in and listen in on kind of what you're doing. I think we're trying to do something similar here in California, but to Gabriella's point, the upcoming conference for us is in September. And so one thing, it's, you know, kind of last minute switching from in-person to online. So maybe not the amount of time we'd normally have to prepare, but we're definitely looking at doing some type of, you know, networking activity or happy hour or something where, you know, TPD could host and we could have people attend, and then they could not only learn a little bit about TPD, but get to mingle with other transportation planners from around the state. And so we're working on that for the conference, and then trying to plan a more statewide type event similar to kind of what you're doing right now, which is why I'm on this call.
we did host a happy hour with all the divisions at the APA home event. So we can certainly make that happen on any scale that we that the Washington chapter would like to do. And then Chris Como would like to see, or has suggested having more sessions at more transportation presentations. So we have been working on figuring out how to do that from a division standpoint, and we are looking to see if there's a way to package something that could be kind of autopilot for the most part, and maybe have one or two of the panelists live available for the actual conference, because it is difficult when you have a virtual conference across many time zones. And so if there's a way that we could develop that idea to have a transportation planning division panel that would be ready to go on an annual basis, that's another option, since you're more local, if you're able to kind of pivot that much more quickly. I know in California we're testing out the idea, but it's also the challenge with the virtual conferences is that you have much less time per se. So like at a in-person conference, you could have multiple sessions going on at the same time. In a virtual setting, that's much more, that's like next level. I don't think we're ready for yet. And so the slots are much more limited. So I think they're looking to create equitable offerings in terms of the topics and the range. And so I think that's definitely an aspect that we are considering how to improve upon. So I don't know if Chris, you have any background or ideas on how to do that, but aside from having multiple sessions and without it making it really difficult from a technological standpoint, we're very much open to having that move forward. So if anyone has that kind of background or has attended a conference where that's been successfully done, we would love to hear about that.
Hey, Michael, you're on mute.
Thank you.
You bet.
I just saw Katie Weatherspoon, you had your hand raised. Do you want to say something? Okay.
I think
and
that
then
was from before.
Katie Bungie said, as a newish planner, her main interface with APA Washington is at commerce-based or commerce-hosted regional planning forums, and suggested that those could be great venues for TPD outreach and increasing visibility. And that's a great idea. Thank you for that. Okay, well, if you have any other thoughts, ideas, please be sure to email myself and or Patrick, and we would love to hear any and all ideas on how to elevate TPD in Washington and make it relevant to the day-to-day work that you're engaged in. Great. So in the remaining 20 minutes, we wanted to have a discussion just about transportation and use of the public right-of-way during the pandemic to support both response to the pandemic and then looking a bit to the future, how we can use transportation and the public right-of-way to aid us in recovery. I was going to show a little video, but I think since we're short on time, I might skip that and just talk about a few examples and then open it up for discussion. I know there's a few folks on the in the meeting that probably have a couple things to share from what's going on in their community. But I mean, as we all know, the pandemic has really changed the transportation landscape significantly. And it's forcing us as planners, forcing designers to come up with creative solutions for supporting the transportation needs of essential workers while keeping people safe, and then also supporting businesses as they try to operate in this challenging environment. We know transit ridership is significantly down across the nation, and that transit agencies are bracing for a big hurt. There's discussions in Congress right now to get more funding so transit systems can be ready to move people when things reopen. And we also know bicycle trips are up significantly, like 57% throughout March and April compared to 2019. And I don't know if you've tried to shop for a bicycle recently, but there aren't any left.
No, and it's not just adult bikes, but kids' bikes.
Yeah,
like all bikes. Yeah.
So yeah, we also know that it's reinforced how we approach road safety. I mean, one silver lining in the pandemic is that total traffic collisions have fallen dramatically, primarily due to fewer vehicle trips. We also know that speeding has become an issue. on Washington highways, but it hasn't necessarily translated into a spike in crashes and fatalities. So that's good news compared to other states. And we also know pedestrian injuries are down, likely due to just there being fewer vehicles on the road. So I think that things are a little iffy right now, just in terms of our number of COVID cases, and we were starting to reopen, and things are sort of backsliding a little bit. But we wanted to just open it up for you all on the phone to talk about maybe what your communities have tried, what's worked, any lessons learned, or what some of the challenges have been to doing something meaningful. There's a couple examples. I'm showing some photos on the slides. City of Pullman, they actually started planning this before COVID-19, but they've implemented a trial on Main Street, which is pretty interesting. It's a state highway, and they've reconfigured it temporarily to include back-in angle parking and to reduce as a one-way 3-lane street to 2 lanes. And they've also put in a protected bike lane. And Kevin Gardes, who's not with us today, shared some information about that, saying how it's been very successful. I mean, there's definitely been some challenges, mainly people getting used to back-in angle parking. But in general, businesses have been very supportive. It's improved access to their downtown. Pullman's also working on implementing some public space, closing off a portion of Pine Street in their central business district, and working with downtown businesses on case-by-case basis to add loading zones and work on ground leases for outside seating. So pretty interesting things happening out in Pullman. Closer to home, Seattle, I think pretty well known what they've done with their Stay Healthy streets, over 20 miles of streets, 13 different locations that they've essentially closed down to traffic. They're not completely closed to traffic, but essentially has sanctioned people walking in the roadway. And they're looking, right now they have an active survey looking for input on making a portion of those permanent. So that's pretty exciting, and kind of looking beyond the pandemic on how to use the public right of way to improve transportation and recreation. I think Kim Scrivener from City of Kirkland is on the call. I know Kirkland's been doing some interesting things. Kim, did you want to just say a few words about what Kirkland is up to?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You can't see me, but my camera's on. I'm not sure if that's something from your end, but Kirkland's been doing a variety of things. The first thing we did early on, and this is by request from some members of the community, was to change some pedestrian signals to not have to touch them, to just be automated. It does pose a challenge because it makes the light cycle a little bit longer, and so we chose carefully our high pedestrian locations. We first bagged them so that people weren't actually touching them, and then I learned, I should know this, I'm a transportation planner, but I don't know everything, and there's a lot of features related to ADA that we didn't realize are associated with the buttons. And so you'll see, and that's why you'll see with a lot of cities, they're not actually bagging the buttons because, for instance, if you press the button a little bit longer, there's more information that's available for the person that's visually impaired. And so we unbag them. For now, they're still on automated cycles. Our next phase was to we implemented some 15-minute only takeout parking stalls downtown by request from restaurants. And then we have a street downtown Kirkland called Park Lane, which is a pedestrian-oriented street. This Park Lane is, it's very, very tight. It's the type of street that has lights over it. It was sort of meant to be a closed street. The challenge that we've had is that all of the restaurants really, really want the street to be closed so that they can move their seating out to allow for more spacing. But we had a ton of pushback from retail. And it's a challenge. In Kirkland, our merchants are very vocal. And so instead of closing Park Lane throughout all of COVID, phase 2 or whatever, however long we would have closed it, we have done our best to accommodate everyone, which means we are opening and closing it every day. Every day at 6 p.m. it closes, which has been a challenge. We are have been partnering with the restaurants that are the most interested in this to help move signage, just to make it as simple as possible. A couple signs need to be moved at a particular time of day. And we feel like that not everybody's super happy, but everybody's mostly happy. Not sure, and those of you that have worked on parking related issues, parking can be a really big challenge. And so we're trying not to, and everybody's frustrated. All of our businesses are trying really hard to stay in business. And so, trying to just accommodate restaurants and then retail feels like they're being left out is the reason why we chose to take this approach. And it's been a challenge. We've had to work with our parks and maintenance crews and OG, what if we do this on weekends and take out the sign? Are we going to have to pay overtime? Luckily, we found some volunteers. Even when we found volunteers, particularly from the local businesses, we've noticed they don't really follow directions that well. So we've had to kind of make it as simple as possible. But it's working, and the restaurants are happy. We've also have now finished an application for streeteries, which allow restaurants to apply to use a parking space for seating for restaurants. We haven't had any implemented yet, but our application's finished. And then our next phase, we were just talking about this today, is to find places downtown where we might be able to have additional cafe seating. And so even just buying a couple aluminum outdoor tables and chairs, we have a couple on Park Lane now that the city owns. We're looking at other places downtown where we can just add more seating for people to be able to get takeout and sit and be able to eat. And then, one last thing is Kirkland, we have the benefit of being on Lake Washington, and we're one of the few cities along the lake that really has most of our waterfront open. We have a lot of parks with access to the water on our waterfront. Parking along Lake Washington Boulevard is also, people use it and it gets full, but we've been asked to take the parking away on one side of the street to allow for more social distancing because our sidewalks are really narrow. And we're taking a look at that. This neighborhood tends to get quite a lot of feedback from the community every time it gets closed, and we just might have to close it anyway for just the parking on one side. But that's going to require a lot of outreach, and so we're doing what we can. And in Kirkland, public engagement is a really big deal. So we've been having weekly meetings with community groups, with a kind of a task force made up of our chamber and our downtown association and council members and city staff to sort this out and to try to come up with the best recommendations as possible. But again, it's really just taken a lot of knocking on doors of businesses and surveys of residences, and just really trying to make sure that we're having the conversations with the people that we need to have in order to make everybody understand that times are tough when we're doing everything we can, and that no decision is the right decision. We're all doing what we can to make it work for everybody. So that's where we are. It's been an interesting couple months, and we've been really busy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences there in Kirkland. Sounds like you're doing quite a bit. Anybody else wanted to share what's going on in their community, or maybe have questions about that others might help answer just based on what they've been doing in their community, please feel free to raise your hand or type something in the chat box.
I think Yes shared some valuable information.
Oh yeah, yes, thank you. Just pointing people to the online survey if you happen to be in Seattle, where that is. The survey actually ends this Wednesday, and I know that the real focus of that is on social and equity focused to make sure that those streets are serving everybody. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I had actually forgot I had some questions here to guide our discussion. So yeah, just asking about what you've done to facilitate social distance transportation or recreation. If you have anything that you want to share, that'd be great. Kim shared some ideas what Kirkland's doing to kind of support businesses as they're reopening, and I shared some stuff from Pullman. And then I think thinking beyond the pandemic and thinking towards how when things start to reopen in a more meaningful way. And I think something what we're all concerned about is the lack of, options that might be available to people, and the congestion that might result on our roadways. I think we're already seeing a bit of that, at least I can speak to that in the Puget Sound region. But kind of, as folks might shy away from transit, and as transit agencies have had to reduce service, I think an important question is what options are communities providing to really provide that healthy, convenient, and affordable transportation. So again, if anybody has any other thoughts, ideas that your community has been engaged in, feel free to share. There are a number of resources available per Yes's suggestion. The NACTO Streets for Pandemic Response and Recovery is a really great resource if you're not already familiar with it. I highly encourage you to check it out. And then WashDOT, we definitely have one of the more progressive state DOTs, and they've started a program called Safe, Healthy, and Active Streets, and it's really working with communities that have state highways, going through them to look at strategies similar to what Pullman is doing, and helping support those communities in reimagining those rights of way. Another interesting state DOT, MassDOT, the APA Massachusetts chapter, they had a pretty good webinar a couple weeks ago on just how to more efficiently implement slow street projects. That's definitely worth checking out. And also tactical urbanism. There was a good webinar a few weeks ago on just project delivery and how to kind of make these things happen at all levels. I'm sure there's other good resources out there. Feel free to share any that you know of. Okay, not seeing any raised hands or anything in the chat. We have just a few minutes left here. I'm curious, just moving forward, if there's nothing more to say about pandemic response and recovery, I would love to hear from folks just in terms of these virtual transportation forums. If you feel like this is a valuable venue in which to exchange ideas, and if so, kind of how often you would engage in something like this. yeah, just feel free to type in the chat box if you have any thoughts on that.
Also, future topics, if there's, we can start to gather a list of topics and kind of start to create that list of ideas for future forums.
Yeah, great thought.
I would also encourage folks to consider if this time and date works for everyone, because we want to make sure that we're able to reach as many members as we can. So if you have suggestions as to like what might work better in terms of time and place, that will help for people to be more engaged, because a lot of times people can't participate and they really want to, and they can't because of the time and date. So I would just add that to the mix.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing, Michael, we haven't really discussed this, but because it's being recorded, we can post the recording somewhere so that others that weren't able to join live can at least follow the discussion. But we haven't quite figured out where this would live, and so that's one other way of kind of accessing these discussions is sort of after the fact. But
yeah, for
so
sure.
Patrick, we could certainly, I know that long term would be to have a website like home for the Washington chapter. But short of that, we can add these to the YouTube channel that TPD recently started in March. So I'm happy to connect you on how to do that. And then we can make it a channel. I think it's called a channel within our channel, or something with we put them into little boxes, and so you can have your own.
Great. Yeah, that's a great
a good idea.
Great. So seen some support for quarterly virtual transportation forums, and that's kind of what we were thinking as well, at least for starters, to do quarterly meetings. I think that would give us time to line up panelists and speakers to talk and talk on various topics. So we'll look to doing that, and we'll definitely look to organize something around the conference coming up in October for sure. Nancy just mentions check out the chapter website, and I think we can. That was another thing that we talked about is getting more content for the Transportation Planning Division on our chapter website as well, just so people can navigate that more easily.
Yeah, I think the chapter would be fine. If we need to make a place for active divisions, and happy to do that and provide the information there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. All right. Well, with that is our first virtual transportation forum. We really thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Michael, I think we got one more question from Michelle Swanson about having the agenda available in advance to help, give people an idea of what might be discussed or opportunities to be engaged in, and which is always helpful, I think, for me, just to have I can brainstorm some ideas beforehand, and it helps us with the dialogue.
For sure. Okay, well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we'll definitely follow up and with you and with a short survey just to get some more thoughts from you on this forum and future forums. So really appreciate your time today, and have a wonderful rest of your Monday.
Thanks, everybody.